Hey, Phoenix is rising. Coach T here, and I'm going to start in chapter 10 reading Paranormal Parasites, the voracious appetites of parasitic entities or astral entities by Nick Redfern. And it's been a while. I've been getting situated and relaxing, resting. It's been a lot going on, and it's been very intense. So let's get into it. Chapter 10, Aliens and Abductions. It's not at all an exaggeration to say that some of the most disturbing stories concerning the parasitic nature of certain supernatural entities revolve around the issue of aliens and UFOs. It is within the domain of extraterrestrial life that we see a host of deeply troubling stories, which may well have been covered up by government agencies, chiefly to prevent public panic on a massive scale if the truth became known. The UFO phenomenon is very much a multifaceted one. It consists of alien abductions, crop circles, UFO landing cases, close encounters, interactions between humans and extraterrestrials, men in black reports, military dogfights with UFOs, and much more. There is, however, another aspect to the UFO issue that often gets swept under the carpet. There is an acutely good reason for that. Very few people in government and in the field of ufology know how to handle it. Or even if it can be successfully handled, it revolves around the nightmarish angle of aliens eating us. There are solid reasons to believe that the UFO phenomena has its dark side, an extremely dark side. We'll start with the strange, almost sci-fi like saga of a small town in northern New Mexico that is at the very heart of this troubling situation. Horrors in under New Mexico. Dulce is a pleasant and inviting town that is situated in New Mexico's Rio Arriba County. It's a small town of less than 3,000 people, around 13 square miles in size. It was founded in the latter part of the 19th century and today is the home of Jasarila Apache Nation. There is nothing particularly unusual or out of the ordinary about Dulce, at least not at first glance. Look a little bit closer, though, and you'll find yourself in a world filled with dark secrets and terrifying tales of the cosmic and conspiratorial kind. And by closer, I mean below your feet, way below your feet, maybe even miles down. Since the late 1970s, rumors have swirled to the effect that deep within the massive Archuleta Mesa that dominates the town, there is a secret and futuristic facility that has been out of bounds in the U.S. government since 1979. Today, it's said that the installation is under the complete control of hostile and deadly extraterrestrials, the so-called Greys of UFO lore, dwarfish, black-eyed, large-headed entities that are particularly part of popular culture. So the story goes that in 1979, a violent confrontation between military personnel and the aliens broke out, and we were the losers. The base, which was once a hub of human-alien interaction, is now theirs, and theirs alone. Witnesses talk of people going missing, and of vast cavern-like rooms in which people are devoured by voraciously hungry aliens. Are the tales true? How did the rumors begin? Let's take a trip back into time to the mid to late 1970s. Paul Benowitz was a scientist who, at the time, ran a company in Albuquerque called Thunder Scientific, a company that quite literally backed up onto the well-guarded fences of Kirtland Air Force Base. It was around 1978 that Benowitz, who had pre-existing interest in UFOs, began to hear of more and more so-called alien abduction events in and around Albuquerque and farther up into northern New Mexico. On top of that, strange signals were picked up by Benowitz on his radio equipment. He saw weird-looking aircraft soaring silently across the skies over Kirtland late at night and in the early hours of the morning. He was given countless abductees being secretly taken to Kirtland and grilled by U.S. intelligence agents who were deeply concerned about the growing number of people seemingly being kidnapped from their homes and subjected to terrifying and bizarre experiments of a genetic nature. As the weeks and months progressed, Benowitz came to believe something incredible, that deadly ETs were secretly getting ready to take over the planet. They were planning on doing so from their command post deep below the town of Dulce. Worldwide invasion and the enslavement of the human race were lurking around the corner, as Benowitz saw it at least. Suspecting that the end really was near, Benowitz prepared a dossier on his findings and theories. He called it Project Beta. Benowitz mailed copies of the controversial report to the FBI, the CIA, and NSA. Every branch of the military and even the White House. People had to be warned and warned now, Benowitz wrote. Notably, Benowitz was not written off as a crank, as many might expect him to have been. In fact, quite the opposite was the case. Intelligence agents at Kirtland Air Force Base quickly established a secret liaison with Benowitz. They warned him about digging any further into things that could be dangerous to his life, no less. But those same agents also confided in Benowitz something incredible, that he was on the right track. They did all that they could to keep Benowitz quiet, almost to the point of begging him to keep his mouth shut on what he knew. For Benowitz, though, this was like a red rag in a bull. The somewhat veiled threats to keep his nose out of things only made Benowitz push further for answers. As an attempt to further frighten and destabilize him, U.S. intelligence fed Benowitz more and more faked, horrific material of what was supposedly going on several miles down Dulce, including tales of the aliens using captured people in the thousands as food. It's no wonder, even the nature of the stories and that they were coming directly from the military, that Benowitz became more and more paranoid. Eventually, he became completely unhinged to the point that he ended up spending time in a local medical facility where he was treated for stress, anxiety, and finally, what particularly amounted to a complete mental collapse. Thankfully, he recovered, but he was careful to keep his distance from ufology. Secret experiments and cattle mutilations. Today, some UFO researchers dismiss Benowitz's theories and conclusions, preferring to suspect that Benowitz had stumbled not on alien activity, but on top-secret programs of the U.S. military intelligence community by steering Benowitz down a path filled with fictitious tales of dangerous aliens. The government would be able to divert him away from the far more down-to-earth truth, so that the theory goes. On the other hand, Benowitz, who died in 2003, still has a huge following of UFO sleuths who are absolutely certain that something abominable is going on down below, or below Dulce, and has been for years, maybe even for centuries. While Benowitz's Project Beta report does read like something straight out of the early years of the X-Files. There is absolutely no doubt that Dulce itself is a very weird place, one where strange activity has been reported for years. For example, in the 1960s, the area around Dulce became the site of a classified U.S. Atomic Energy Commission program called Gas Buggy. It was part of a larger operation codenamed Plowshare. The plan was to explode a significant life-sized atomic device underground deep below the Carson National Forest, which just happens to be only a few miles from Dulce. The reason was to try to access massive and precious supplies of natural gas. The bomb was detonated on December 10th, 1967, more than 4,000 feet below the surface, although the Plowshare program continued in the area until the late 1970s. Even today, digging underground in the area is strictly forbidden. In light of all Benowitz's findings, it's not at all surprising that there are those in the UFO community who believe that the Plowshare program was actually a cover story, one created to mask the fact that the United States government tried to destroy the alien base under Dulce and with a nuclear weapon. That just such a weapon really was detonated underground and only a few minutes from Dulce ensures that the rumors of an alien presence in the area continue to thrive. And the fact that people are warned not to dig underground in the area only adds to suspicion that there is something very sinister going on below Dulce. Beyond that, in 1989, thanks to the provisions of the Freedom of Information Act, the FBI declassified into the public domain its extensive files on so-called cattle mutilations in the Dulce area, all of which occurred in the 1970s. Such mutilations have been reported all across the county since 1967, but Dulce is renowned for the huge number of cases in its midst, as the FBI learned. Cattle are found lacking major organs, blood is removed from the bodies in astonishingly quick time, and black and unmarked helicopters are seen in the areas of mutilation, as are strange lights in the sky in UFOs too. Incredibly, all of these issues are discussed at length in the FBI's official files on the mutilations in and around Dulce, all of which can be read online on the FBI's website, The Vault, under the title Animal Mutilation. So yes, there is definitely something strange going on in Dulce, something that has been going on for an extraordinary long time, and all of which now brings us to the most controversial aspect of the story, that the Dulce base amounts to nothing less than a vast slaughterhouse. No surprises when it comes to who is being slaughtered and why. Absorption and digestion of us. Pardon. And the stories coming out of Dulce if the stories coming out of Dulce are really true, then we may well be in big trouble, all of us. Rumors suggest that there are multiple levels in Dulce base, which is said to extend, miles down into the Archuleta Mesa. This is where the ETs are supposedly conducting bizarre experiments and procedures, which involve using us as food items. In the Dulce base, the pseudonymous Jason Bishop III, who also uses the name Tal Lavasque, quoted in Insider from the Dulce installation, who circulated his own statement to the UFO community. That man was Thomas E. Costello, who claimed to have worked in the Dulce base. He said this: Level 7 is worse, row after row of thousands of humans and human mixtures in cold storage. Here, too, are embryo storage vats of humanoids in various stages of development. I frequently encountered humans in cages, usually dazed or drugged, but sometimes they cried and begged for help. We were told they were hopelessly insane and involved in high-risk drug tests to cure insanity. We were told to never try to speak to them at all. At the beginning, we believed that story. Finally, in 1978, a small group of workers discovered the truth. The alien truth, that is. Another source who was revealed who has revealed what he knows about the Dulce base is Alan B. DeWalton, who writes under the name Branton. He claims to know something remarkable from what was secretly learned by some of the workers who fled for their lives when the aliens gained complete control of the base in 1979, which has a notable bearing on the theme of this book. Branton stated in the Dulce book that during the course of his research he learned that the human body is in reality surrounded by etheric body, surrounded by the astral body, surrounded by the mental body. Now we come to the most important part. One of Branton's Dulce insiders revealed this to him. We also actually have an extra body, the emotional body, that aliens don't have. This part of us constantly puts out a kind of energy that cannot generate or simulate. This emotional energy is, to them, like a potent, much sought after drug. They can take it out of us and bottle it, so to speak. Also, during this harvesting, greys will look directly into our eyes as if they are drinking something or basking in light. Yes. Oh. Now I'm going to stop here because I actually was talking to somebody today and I was telling them that because I had an encounter a few months ago now with somebody in my apartment, and they did the plumbing. That's what their job was. But they were so offended, like violently, childishly, temper tantrum, throwing a fit because I did not give them eye contact. It's not that I didn't look at them. I did not allow them to inhale me, I guess. And because I was actually revolted by this person. And I kept walking. So it's interesting to get that confirmation reading this now. Because sometimes, demons take on human flesh, or at least hide themselves in it. Okay, so let's continue. Just thought I'd say that. So I'll start from the beginning. So we also actually have an extra body, the emotional body, that the aliens don't have. This part of us constantly puts out a kind of energy that cannot generate or simulate. This emotional energy is to them like a potent, much sought after drug. They can take it out of us and bottle it, so to speak. Also, during this harvesting, greys will look directly into our eyes as if they are drinking something or basking in light. In a 1991 book, Matrix 2, Valdemar Valerian refers to one particular alien abductee at the Dulce base as a vat full of red liquid and body parts of humans and animals. She could see greys bobbing up and down, almost swimming. Joshua Cutchin is the author of a 2015 book, A Trojan Feast, The Food and Drink Offerings of Aliens, Fairies, and Sasquatch. Cutchin's findings add to this bleak and harrowing controversy. While abduction research does not overtly suggest that aliens are harvesting people for consumption, there may be a grain of truth to the report contained in the pages of Valerian's Matrix 2. Nourishment is ingested by smearing a soupy mixture of biologicals on the epidermis. Food sources include bovine, cattle, and human parts, distilled into a high-protein broth. Fairies, Faisons, and Folklore. David Jacob is the author of 2 books on alien abductions, The Threat and Walking Among Us. He believes that aliens obtain fuel differently from humans, that their skin has a very unique function, and that they convert food to energy very differently. This may well be connected to the concept of what is known as foison. It's a centuries old word that is directly linked to another kind of diminutive entity that, just like the black eyed grays of ufology, were also renowned for kidnapping people and leading them to magical realms, fairies. In regards to what phazon is, Patricia Monaghan, in her 2008 book, The Encyclopedia of Celtic Mythology and Folklore, explains that within every substance on earth is its foison. The foison of food is its nourishment, and it was this Irish folklore contends that the fairies stripped from food when they stole it. The milk might remain there, creamy in the milk pail, but without its foison it had no nourishment left, huh? This sounds very much like the concept that David Jacobs has suggested, that the aliens convert food into energy in highly alternative ways. It also sounds astonishingly like the stories coming out of Dulce. It's notable that researchers including John Keel and Jacques Vallée postulated that the tales of the Greys of today and the fairies of yesteryear have a common origin that may well be one and the same, but with identities that have been distorted via cultural beliefs, traditions, and perceptions. The late U.S. Army Colonel Philip J. Corso, the co-author with William J. Burns of 1997's The Day After Roswell, made a very similar observation too. He speculated that with regard to the aliens, if an exchange of nutrients and waste occurred within their systems, that exchange could only have taken place through the creature's skin or the outer protective covering they wore, because there were no digestive or waste systems. All of the above points to the possibility that when it comes to the extraterrestrials in our midst, their process of ingesting and digesting food is very different from our processes. If all of the above is true, then a vitally important question sorely needs to be addressed. Where are the aliens getting their food supplies? Where from alien abductees and UFO witnesses, perhaps? An answer to this question comes from the files of Leonard Springfield, a U.S. Air Force intelligence officer and UFO investigator who died in 1994. Let me move my legs. Okay, sorry. Alien butchers and Vietnam War. It was in the late 1980s that Springfield, still highly active in ufology at the time, received the astonishing and terrible facts concerning an incident that occurred in early 1972 when the Vietnam War was still raging. It took place in Tonle Sap, Cambodia, which is situated in Southeast Asia. The story is told in Springfield's UFO Crash Retrievals, The Inner Sanctum, which was self-published in July 1991. A group of expert marksmen were secretly and silently parachuted in late one night to an area that bordered closely on North Vietnam. The operation was a vitally important one to take out a North Vietnamese facility that U.S. intelligence had been able to deduce was clandestinely listening in on top secret conversations between high-ranking American personnel in South Vietnam. The team camped down for the night, fully prepared to make an assault on the North Vietnamese team as dawn broke. It never happened. Rather, it didn't happen the way that it was envisaged. The group made a skillful and stealthy approach on the area, using the defense foliage for cover, only to find to their terror that something unearthly had changed the situation, and drastically so too. As the team got closer to the area in which the North Vietnamese unit was hunkered down, they suddenly found themselves confronted by a large ball-like craft that sat atop three sturdy metallic legs. The craft suddenly began to hum, something that caused instant sickness, dizziness, and disorientation on the part of the U.S. troops. Fighting the urge to throw up and go out of the area quickly, they were suddenly rooted to the spot by a group of strange-looking humanoid creatures that today we would call the Greys of UFO lore. Barely believing what they were seeing, the group was even more horrified by what the creatures were doing, handling various human body parts and placing them into large containers. Arms, legs, torsos, heads, the grisly list went on and on. Some were the remains of white people, others were black. Several looked like Vietnamese people. Managing to keep the sickness and dizziness around some degree of control, the team crawled forward on their stomachs. The commanding officer silently gave the order to fire. Salvos of bullets slammed into bodies of the creatures, who barely seemed fazed by the assault. That is, aside from one, which was said to have been killed by a shot to the head. Several of the U.S. troops lost their lives, and others were left severely burned by the effects of an unknown weapon. The aliens then quickly retreated, loaded the containers into the craft, and vanished into the skies above. In no time at all, another team was on the scene, CIA types. As one of the survivors told Springfield, all of the surviving men were given certain mind-altering drugs to try to make them forget the incredible affair, and apparently they worked. At least it worked for a while. In the late 1980s, however, two members of the team started to experience dramatic and nightmarish flashbacks to those events of April 1972, which prompted one of the team to contact as many of the others as they could find. Two were dead and three could not be located, but the rest were able to meet up in August 1988 and decided that the story needed telling. After being approached with the story, Springfield did exactly that. He published it for anyone and everyone that wanted to see it. This particular incident is not just horrific and disturbing, it also serves to demonstrate how and under what particular circumstances alien entities from faraway worlds may be using us for nourishment by effectively slaughtering us and taking our bodies as a means for them to feed, and feed voraciously. Perhaps that is what is going on miles down Dulce, New Mexico. If you think that all of this sounds way too far out, then consider this. Data from the National Crime Information Center's Missing Person and Unidentified Person Statistics for 2017 shows that more than 650,000 people are presently unaccounted for, and that's in the United States alone. Never mind across the rest of the planet. Of course, many are likely to be child runaways, victims of abusive relationships, criminals, and more. That said, though, there may be more than a few whose disappearances cannot be explained away quite so easily. They may have met their ends deep below the ground in northern Mexico. All right. It is actually late, so I'm not going to read another chapter, but the 11th chapter is Creatures That Make Us Sick. So I don't know about you guys, but this has gotten to be really interesting. I just know my experiences with the spiritual realm and the occult, whether I've wanted to experience it or not. So I'm just sharing it with you guys, and I hope that you've gotten something out of this. If you have, tell me in the comments what you think. Share. Have you guys had any type of paranormal experiences, you know. I know that sometimes, trauma can split us and we see things, and that we got to consider that too. But, whether it's that or whether you actually see because you are a seer and you got that gift, just share. And I will be back. If not later on, because right now it's 2 a.m. in the morning. I took a nap, so I'm still up, but now I'm getting tired. But I will read later on, and part 8, chapter 11, creatures that make us sick. So stay tuned, and remember, phoenixes, your blessings are in your ashes. Rise.